clapped about 20 years ago when my county Republican Party defeated something that I thought everyone believed in, and it woke me up to what was going on. I began to pay closer attention. I think we've seen people around the country doing that in the last couple of years. Unfortunately, we're not voting any different than what we've been voting, and so we're likely to re-elect. We are re-electing the very same people that have been doing all the things that you are upset about and that you're going to Washington about and that you're coming to Austin about. So it has to be about more than just getting angry. A couple of years ago, I was invited to speak at an In the Fed event in Houston, Texas, and I said, are you ready to do the mental heavy lifting that it's going to take? There's an agenda, and since the earliest civilization, we have seen man craving power, and that is how we are created. We all have the desire to control and be selfish, and as man gets power, he becomes controlling, and you find the man fighting the man, the government, the establishment, and we see it back to Greek and Roman civilization and a struggle then. The early Greeks recognized the value of private property, and the Romans gave it all to the government, and they maintained the ownership. And for a time, that was a powerful empire, and then it too crumbled. Over history, we've seen that those civilizations that have protected and preserved private property rights have been those that were most able to thrive and prosper. Where people are given ownership and dominion over that they are working for, they will continue to work and prosper. And where it is taken from them and shared universally amongst all of the population, you will see poverty and suffering. And so this private property thing is not a new thing to man. It's been around since our very earliest days. And the struggle that we have between who's going to have dominion over the land is not a new struggle. But it is certainly one that has become much more sophisticated. And I think you're going to have an opportunity this evening to maybe hear about some work that's going on. All of government, it seems, at least all of government that is depriving us of freedom and the opportunity to prosper is subtle and insidious. Otherwise, we would stand up and fight. And these efforts, I was talking to a couple of ladies in the back, and I said, you know, my own daughter is an interior designer, and there's a lot of green movement in that world, and architects, and they're looking at renewable energy and conservation. And you know, there's not a thing wrong with conservation. There's not a thing wrong with being a good steward of the land and of the property and of the natural resources. And so when you first look at that, it all looks good. But when you begin to look beneath the surface, you realize that it's not good. It's evil, and it deprives us of our opportunity to provide for ourselves and our families. It deprives us of ownership and dominion over the property, and ultimately destroys the nations of the world and makes us all one big global community. There are some interesting things happening. I've run across a website that I'd like to call your attention to, especially for those of you who follow fiscal policy and currency and are concerned about the economy, both of the country, of our state, and of the world. It's called the Daily Bell. Found that just within the last couple of weeks, and boy, it has a perspective on what's going on in Europe that you're not going to hear or see in media here in the United States. I actually ran across them because they did an interview of the new editor of the American Conservative magazine, and I don't know how that showed up on a Google alert for me, but they've got some really good stuff, and they've done a good job in the articles that I've read of kind of giving you a historical perspective back to the early 1900s and how we have progressed to where we are today, and they often do that in their articles. And I think as you have this discussion this evening, you'll find out this stuff didn't start yesterday and it didn't start last year. It started decades ago, and people continue to be persistent. So when we talk about mental heavy lifting, there really is a need for us to educate ourselves and be informed, and not just for ourselves, but for our posterity. We've got to be talking about these issues around the kitchen table. We've got to be talking about them around the water cooler at the workplace. And we have to be more discerning in our support of elected officials. I've had the opportunity this fall to sit in a number of Texas Conservative Coalition town hall meetings. How many of you in this audience, not to cast any kind of judgment at all, but on the general political spectrum, you have liberal on one side and conservative on the other, how many would consider yourselves to be at least middle of the road to the right, quasi-conservative? How many would consider yourself to be middle of the road to the left? Virtually, and there may be a few in the crowd, not everybody raised their hand on the conservative side, but I think that's what we tend to see, especially in Texas, is most of us consider ourselves to be conservative. We have the Texas Conservative Coalition. It is a coalition of members of the Texas legislature who purport to be conservative. And in fact, if you look at their scorings by the various organizations that rank them, they would tell you that they are in fact the most conservative members of the Texas legislature. But I happened to be in a town hall meeting where the president of that coalition was on the stage, and they were questioned about the Texas Enterprise Fund. In fact, the young lady that questioned them happened to be my firstborn child, and she said, you know, it seems to me that the Texas Enterprise Fund is corporate welfare, and I thought, and it's a bailout of sorts, and I thought that Americans and Texans had sent a very clear message. We didn't think that was proper government function to take our private dollars and bail out private businesses. And one of the members on the stage of the Texas Conservative Coalition said, well, it is corporate welfare, but we do good things with the money. And there sat the president of the Texas Conservative Coalition, and he was nodding his head. See, you've got to understand, when I take your money, it's okay. Because you and I think alike. So y'all all just start digging in and handing it over. Because that's where the members of the Texas Conservative Coalition are. Do not rest on your laurels and think we picked up 8 or 10 new Republican representatives and everything's going to be okay in Austin this session, because it's not. Because their view is, by and large, if it's a Republican taking your money, it's good. It's only bad when a Democrat takes your money, because you won't like the way they're spending it. Well, I've got news for Austin. It's my money, damn it. And you don't get it. Period. And it's my job to provide for my family, and to care for my family, and to do the best job that I can to care for my property and to help my neighbor. That's how we prosper as a society. Not when we turn to government to bail us out of every ill that comes our way. I am very grateful that you're here this evening. I'm grateful for the work that's being done. My understanding is this is the third audience, but it's the first one where we have a county elected official in our midst. So kudos to those of you who have done the work to put this event together, to make sure you're reaching out to our elected officials and saying to them, these issues are important. We need to be studying them together. None of us has all the answers, but when we come together collectively, I'm the first to admit that there are a number of individuals here tonight who are much more informed on some of these specific Agenda 21 issues than I am, but we're going to be in lockstep on defending our liberty and our freedom, and understanding that private property ownership and dominion is an integral part of that. I appreciate the opportunity to address you for a few minutes. I look forward to hearing tonight's presentation. Thank you.